Has this conflict with Iran depleted U.S. munitions? Not according to this CSIS report, or Center for Strategic and International Studies. Now, when the layman hears the word depleted or expended, they immediately jump to completely exhausted or zeroed out, and that's not what this report shows. Now, it's important to note that the actual stockpile numbers for all of our missiles and munitions are classified, highly classified, and that nobody of an unclassified nature, no one in the media knows what those numbers are. And whenever you receive an anonymous source talking about this, you can't even believe that that is an anonymous source, that they might be even just making it up. And so your best source arguably would be CSIS, because they are tracking credible numbers from an unclassified position pre-war and after the war, and we'll go into that now. Before we get into the unclassified estimates that they have been tracking, here is a list of cost per missile or cost per unit of each item and what they estimate the pre-war inventory was. Now, I'll go ahead and list the cause for concern up front, and that is your precision strike missiles. These are like your ATACMS and your HIMARS. They are almost completely depleted, and your THAADs were, I believe, also almost completely depleted, but we'll go into those numbers here in detail in a moment. Now, here in this figure, you have your alternative strike munitions estimated inventory. This is, again, pre-war, and you can see they have a low estimate and a high estimate. And here is the additional alternative air defense munitions estimated inventory, again, broken out into low and high numbers of an unclassified nature, so likely these numbers are higher. And these are your air interceptor missiles that they use to take down many Shahed drones. Now, it's important to show these alternatives because they are part of a layered defense and offensive capabilities that many in the media don't actually even talk about and lead you to believe narratives that just aren't true, like utilizing Patriots to take out drones, which on a very rare occasion happened, but almost never happened. And here is the first figure that shows pre-inventory levels and expenditure levels and what is planned to be replaced. And you'll see this across all of the graphs. This one depicts Tomahawks. And as you can see, we have expended maybe 1/3 of our total inventory, and that a small fraction of that has been replaced in 2026, and that a vast majority of it is expected to be replaced in 2027. But we still have unclassified, again, numbers of over 2,000 left. And here you have a similar story with our JASMs. As you can see, though, we have a lot more left over in our inventory. Much of that, or at least half of it, is going to be replaced this year, with an additional amount being replaced in 2027, which should replenish what we have lost. Here is what I spoke on earlier. All of our precision strike missiles are pretty much depleted. They are going to be replaced by the end of this year, as you can see, with a lot more expected to be replaced in 2027 if all of the funding and processing goes through. And this is a failure of multiple administrations, allowing these levels to be this low for such a very long time. And here is our SM-3. These are our short and medium range ballistic missile interceptors. As you can see, we have depleted 1/3 to over 1/2 of our total inventory, with a monicum of replacements either this year or scheduled for next year, overall bringing our total inventory down by 1/3 if nothing else happens. And here is our SM-6 inventory. As you can see, we have depleted maybe at the high end 1/3 of our total inventory, and we will replenish all of that by 2027 if all orders are fulfilled. The SM-6 is a multi-role missile. It can do ballistic missile intercepts, and it can do air-to-air intercepts. And as you can see, we have a much larger quantity of it. And here is where the media tries to start to scare you, because everyone knows about the THAAD. It's our high altitude air defense system against ballistic missiles. And according to this unclassified report, we have expended half, if not probably 75 to 80%, and with no planned replenishment in 2026, and obviously a doubling of that effort in 2027. Same goes with the Patriot missile system. As you can see, we have expended approximately 1/2 of our inventory and replenished very little, with a plan to boost our total inventory in 2027. Now, the reason why the expenditure of the Patriot and THAAD missile systems is so high is because at the start of the conflict, Iran launched over 1,000 ballistic missiles and drones towards our allies and our bases, and so we had to expend a lot early on to intercept the majority of those missiles, with very few getting through. In fact, after the first week of the conflict, their operational rate of fire was reduced by upwards of 90%, which is why you didn't see so many large uses of Patriot or THAAD interceptors after that, because we had annihilated the majority of their launch capabilities. And it's also the reason why you only see a dozen or half a dozen ballistic missiles or drones ever being used at any given time since then to now. Now, what's interesting about that report is that if those numbers are even approximately accurate, the pre-conflict numbers, then all analysts agree that our inventory levels were already below necessary levels to sustain 2 wars at the same time, which has been a basic requirement since the end of World War II for the U.S. to be able to conduct a war off of each coast simultaneously, and yet no Congress for many years has bothered to correct this potential deficiency. And so it took the Trump administration to show them why they needed to pay more to actually be able to conduct that level of military action, because look at all the munitions that we have expended just to destroy the IRGC. So as it currently stands, we have enough to continue on down our current course of dismantling the IRGC, but then will we have enough if we have to shift focus to the Pacific? And the answer is maybe. And of course, that answer is not good enough, which is why the Trump administration has asked for more funding to replace lost munitions and to also increase current inventory levels. Now, fortunately, contractors, defense companies have stepped up and created innovative, cost-effective interceptors of various types, but those are still being produced and have not, I believe, have not hit the current inventory levels necessary to act as alternatives to our current inventories. Now, there's this ridiculous notion out there that because of our current munitions expenditures, that China could seize an opportunity to take Taiwan, and that is such a sophomoric, a very elementary view of the world and the dynamics in the Indo-Pacific. China isn't even ready or capable of conducting a blockade and an amphibious assault on Taiwan. And yet they want people to believe that we have given them some type of opening. On the contrary, we have shown China that our technology is so superior and theirs is so inferior that they have a lot of retooling to do, and they are nowhere near ready to execute an amphibious assault on Taiwan for probably the next 3 to 4 years at best, if ever. And then all of those people that are angry at the fact that we have conducted this conflict with Iran fail to answer the question of, well, what were we supposed to do with their massive inventory of ballistic missiles and drones? How are we supposed to also keep the mandate that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, which has been around for over 25 years, and still able to stop them if they have a massive drone and ballistic missile inventory? Because I'm going to tell you that diplomacy is not going to get them to cut those numbers down, and yet that's all I ever hear from anyone is, well, we could have used diplomacy. And then they don't go into detail of how that would have worked, because it wouldn't have worked, and it hasn't worked. They also fail to address the 1,000+ lives, U.S. lives, that Iran has taken since 2001. You could arguably include everything from 1980 and beyond, but they are the makers of all of our roadside bombs and IEDs that killed over 600 troops. They are the ones that have attacked our troops over 350 times in the last 2 years and have largely gone unanswered until Epic Fury. They have no answer for any of the constant attacks that the IRGC does against the U.S. and their soldiers, but all they do is scream diplomacy. And that is not an answer. That does nothing for us when it's clearly failed across multiple administrations. So this was not a war of choice. It was a war of consequence, and it's high time that everybody accept that.